Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me here today. So I'm Carly Neal, the Hub's Community Engagement and Training Coordinator, and I'm looking forward today to introducing you to our brand new Anger Management and Emotional Resilience module, Values, Anger, and Acts of Aggression. For those of you who aren't familiar with the GoToWebinar platform, it is interactive, so you can send in your questions at any time. On your control panel, you'll see a question box where you can type in any questions you might have. I will be pausing at the end for questions, but feel free to send them in throughout the webinar, and if I don't get to them right away, I'll get to them at the end. All right, so like I mentioned before, the new module is called Values, Anger, and Acts of Aggression. All right, so values, anger, and acts of aggression outlines the concept of anger and how participants can adapt to difficult or stressful situations that may cause them to become angry. Participants will explore how building and demonstrating emotional resilience is helpful in responding to difficult situations. Values are emphasized as guiding principles to the way you live your life. When participants have a strong understanding of how anger/aggression can impact their values, they become motivated to use healthy approaches to address anger such that it does not manifest as destructive behaviors. The module strongly encourages self-reflection to foster emotional awareness and self-empowerment. Okay, so this module is located in the peace and justice theme on our platform. So like I'm sure all of you are familiar, we have 6 thematic areas on Hub, which all of our content is divided into. So this will be located under peace and justice. And when we switch over to the platform later, I will just review that with you so that you know exactly where to find it. All right, so first we're just going to go over some background information. So this information can actually be found in the Facilitator guide, which I will be opening up shortly. But I just wanted to start with some background information regarding the goals of the participants, the purpose of the module, and some topics and skills used throughout the module. So in this module, participants will develop group rules of engagement to better support and respect all group participants. Learn about the role of the journal as a personal tool for growth and expression. Identify their values and how they currently live by them. Define and explore anger and reflect on how they express anger. Identify helpful and unhelpful responses to anger and how unhelpful responses to anger, acts of aggression, impacts their lives. Explore examples of how value-driven anger can lead to make positive social change. Identify the difference between anger and acts of aggression and reflect on how they express anger and acts aggressively. Reflect on the ways anger and acts of aggression impact living a life connected to their values. And reflect on how managing anger and reducing acts of aggression can help move them towards a life connected to their values. All right, and the purpose of the module is to initiate a process of self-reflection, self-insight, and emotional awareness by exploring their values, how anger can be helpful and harmful, the differences between anger and acts of aggression, and the impact of anger and acts of aggression may have on living a life aligned with their values, and how managing their unhelpful anger and acts of aggression may help them move towards a life aligned with their values. All right, so in this module, some topics that we focus on are check-in, rules of engagement, and an introduction to the journal. What do you value? Understanding anger. Anger in the body and brain. Is anger helpful or harmful? Anger and acts of aggression. How do acts of aggression get in the way of living your values? And how managing your anger and reducing your acts of aggression can move towards your values. All right, and some skills used throughout this module: recognition of values, emotional awareness, fostering empathy towards others, fostering self-empathy, interpersonal effectiveness and safety, recognizing destructive or harmful thoughts and behaviors, problem solving, emotional regulation, self-awareness, mindful approaches, and violence prevention. All right, and so like I mentioned before, we have some really great digital resources on Hub. So we do have a module guide that really goes in depth into the actual module. It will give you page by page. It gives you a script, instructions, and discussion points, designed to be a foolproof way for you to deliver any Hub module. And then also we have a youth journal, which has been designed as well. So you'll notice throughout the module, there are little prompts for journal moments where you will just instruct your participants to turn to their journal and complete different interactive activities, which really encourages participation throughout the module. All right, so I'm just gonna now switch over to the Hub platform. We're gonna go through the actual module and I'll also show you how to access these resources. All right, and additionally, using your control panel for questions, you can also use your control panel at any time to let me know if you're experiencing any technical difficulties. If at any point you're unable to hear my audio or see my screen, please let me know through the question box. All right, here we have our Hub platform. Okay, so first we're going to grab our journal. So the journals can be found under youth learning. So just to review this with everyone, basically Hub has two separate learning types. You'll notice a third, which is grayed out in the center. We are working on curating some adult learning content, which will be released soon, and more information about those releases will be included in our monthly newsletter. But for now, we have the two learning types. So youth learning is for when you're actually working with clients. Professional development is just used when you're doing program planning, or maybe you want to check out some of these new modules before you work with your clients. You'll enter professional development. So in terms of the digital resources, all of the youth journals can be found under youth learning, and all of the module guides can be found under professional development. So I'm just going to start off by grabbing our journal to start. So when you enter youth learning, because you're working with a client, you're just going to have to specify what sector you're working with. So if you're Ontario Youth Justice, you'll select that, and if not, you will just select community. Okay, and like I mentioned before, the new module is under peace and justice. And I'm just going to go into modules, right? And here it is under anger management and emotional resilience. And here you have a little module card available, which gives you a little synopsis about what the module is all about and how long it typically takes to go through with a client. So you'll see here, modules estimated to take about 45 minutes to go through. That time can fluctuate depending on how many clients you're working with or how much kind of like discussion is integrated into the program, but our estimate is about 45 minutes to get through. All right, so since we're in the youth learning portal, we have access to our journals. So I'm just going to open this up. You're just going to specify English. Right now, we just have English available. And here we have our youth journal. So I'm going to keep this open as we go through the actual module so we can reference back to it and go through the different activities. So we're not going to go through every page here, but here you have your journal. And all of our digital resources will open up as separate PDFs. So you have the ability to keep it open as a tab, especially for the module guide. It's sometimes nice to have that open or in front of you the first few times you do the module. So you have that option. You can also print it if you like. Some facilitators I know prefer to kind of have the guides right in front of them. For the youth journal, you will be having to print it for your clients or just sending them a digital copy if you are doing virtual programming. Because it opens up as a PDF, you're able to save it and share it. So feel free, if you are doing any virtual programming, to just email it to your clients so that they can work alongside it. And they don't even really have to have like a printer available. Obviously, in best case scenarios, you'd have the ability to print it and give it to your clients. But if you do have that barrier with in-person programming right now at your facility, you do have the option to just like send it to your clients too and have them work through it. All right, so now we're just going to grab the facilitator guide. So I'm going to use my navigation button on the left-hand side of my screen here and switch into professional development. So this button's really handy because it allows you to switch between the learning types. Again, youth learning for when you're working with clients, professional development when you're on your own. And then for any youth justice facilitators, you have access to your client list and you have access to your profile as well. All right, so we're going to go into professional development. You'll see the theme selection is the same and it's located under peace and justice. And we'll go into study modules and just back into that module. So here, since we're in professional development, instead of the view journal button, you're going to see the view guide button. So here we have our module guide. Like I mentioned before, it's really detail oriented. Here's the information I gave you earlier just regarding kind of the purpose of the module and the skills and topics used throughout. And then you'll see here, we've featured a really great page here for tips for empowerment and building resilience during the module. So I do encourage you to check out those tips. And then it goes page by page and gives you your script, instructions, and discussion points. So it's a really great resource to have, especially when you're getting familiar with the module. If at any point you're not exactly sure how to do an activity, or if you're looking for some discussion points to encourage participation, feel free to reference this here. All right, so now we're going to open up the module. So to open, I'm just going to click enter and start module in the top left corner. Okay, and you're brought here to the page that I showed you earlier, and you will just hit begin module to start. Okay, so in the center too, I have my navigation button available. Just want to show you this quickly. So this will show you every single page in the actual module. This can be really handy if you need to maybe repeat some information, you want to repeat an activity or go back. Feel free to navigate through the module with that button in the center here. All right, so the module begins with just a quick introduction to the participants as to what the module will be discussing. So what you value and why it is important, anger in the body and brain, when anger can be helpful and when it can be harmful, the difference between anger and acts of aggression, how anger and acts of aggression can stop you from living a life connected to your values, and how managing acts of aggression can lead to more connection between your behavior and your values. Okay, and I'll just use my buttons, next buttons to progress, and you can go forward and backward. Okay, great. So we start with the check-in activity. So you're just going to click the Start Activity button to begin. All right, so we just do a bit of sharing. So you're just going to ask your participants to turn to the person next to them and say their name and what brings them the most happiness. This activity too can just be done one-on-one if you are working one-on-one with a client. If in this activity you're not getting much participation, feel free to kind of share things yourself to get the activity going. All right, so after the check-in activity, we start with rules of engagement. All right, so you'll be brainstorming with your group some rules of engagement. You'll click the Let's Brainstorm button to begin. So you're just going to use the spaces provided to type in your participants' answers, or sorry, rules of engagement that they would suggest. You can click on this light bulb icon right in the top right corner here for some suggestions. So the rules of engagement, you might have noticed them in some of the other hub modules. It's a really great way to kind of check in with the group and set out some expectations and discuss, like a positive learning environment. So here are some suggestions that we've included. So respect everyone's opinion, beliefs, and emotions. Listen to others. Respect privacy. Everything shared in this room stays in the room. Keep an open mind. Don't judge. One person speaks at a time. We won't speak over each other, take space when you need to, respect differences in culture, beliefs, and experiences. So those are some suggestions. If if like participation isn't great in your group, feel free to click on that button and go through some of those suggestions and then fill in those spaces with your participants' responses. Right, so after the rules of engagement have been made, we're going to introduce participants to the journal. So it basically just explains why we're using the journal. And then you're gonna click the Start Journal Moment button to begin the first activity in the journals. So you'll hit the View Journal Questions button to start the activity, and then you're just gonna ask your participants to turn their journals and answer these questions. Open this journal. So you'll see that the questions are included here on page 3. So you're just gonna give them enough time to answer these questions as a quick kind of check-in activity to introduce the journals. All right, so after they've completed those, you're going to progress to the next page. All right, so we just start by diving into values. And you're just gonna click on each button so you can review with participants what values are, where values come from, and why your values are important. And for this text, I would recommend inviting a participant to read the text on the page. And if they're not comfortable with doing so, feel free to read the text yourself. Okay, so after you've reviewed that, go to the next page. Here we have a quote. And then we have an activity here. So you'll just click that Start Activity button. And so here in this activity, there is a list of values, and your participants are going to choose their top 10 values and rate them from 1 to 10, then explain why each value is important to them. If your participant says a value and it's not on the list, feel free to add them in. So if you want to add any, you're just going to click that space at the very top and add whatever, I mean, family is in there, but if it wasn't, you would just add it there. If not, if it is on the list, you're just going to select it. All right, so if health is their number 1, they're then just going to explain here why that value is important to them. So I'll just show you a few other examples on this list. So we have love, money, family, religion, success, knowledge, power, friends, adventure, beauty, stability, creativity, respect for self, respect for others, relaxation, safety, fairness, fun, work, education, and honesty. So those are the values that we've listed. Again, you have that option to add in any additional values that your participants would like to add. And then you'll just invite them to explain why that is important. All right, so after that activity is complete, we then get into how you express your values. So based on the activity before, you're going to choose the same top 5 values that you chose in the activity, and then give an example of how you live or express this value participants will explain how they live or express this value in their lives. So you'll see here, it's because we chose health, it shows that, and if we had gone through the list, all 5 would show up here. So you're just gonna choose your 5 values and then how you express or live this in their life. All right, and then we have another journal moment here. So you're gonna view journal questions. And here we have our questions, which are included here. We've put that nice quote in there. And then here we have those questions listed. So you're just going to instruct your participants to turn to their journals and answer these questions. So we have write or draw what your life looks like when you're living your top 5 values. How do you feel if you are living your top 5 values? Do you feel that your current lifestyle and behavior reflect those values? And what challenges do you currently face that make living these values difficult? All right, so you'll just give your clients as much time as they need to complete those questions, and then you'll progress through the module. All right, so now we get into the next topic, understanding anger. All right, so we get into defining anger. You'll just click on that view definition button. All right, so here we just review that anger is a natural emotion that can range from mild annoyance to intense rage. Anger is a natural response in situations where we feel our needs are not being met, we feel our values are not respected, we/others are in danger, we/others are threatened or being harmed. We have to protect ourselves or others. Right, so after defining it, we'll then get into what happens in your body when you feel angry. Before you click on that button, just ask the group to share some examples of what happens in their body when they feel angry. So things like, fists clenching, warmth in their face, jaw clenching, things like that. And then you'll click on the Explore the Angry Body button. All right, so here we just go through different effects of anger on the body. So we just review that not everyone responds to feelings of anger in the same way, and here are the most common effects of anger on the body. So in your brain, dizziness, headache, vision changes, flashes of light or dark spots, tunnel vision. And then you're just going to click on each icon to go through different parts of your body and how that part of your body can respond to anger. So here for your heart, increased heart rate. For lungs, faster, shallow breathing. Muscle tension, clenched fists, grinding teeth, shaking or trembling. Sweating, hot, red skin. And stomach ache. All right, so after you've gone through each of those tabs, you'll click on the next arrow to continue. All right, and here you're just going to have your clients list some of the changes they experience in their body when they feel angry. So you can use some of the examples in the slide before that you went through. If participants are having like a hard time thinking of kind of the changes they see in their body, feel free to use those previous examples, or feel free also to share some examples of yourself to kind of get the conversation going. Okay, so after you're done that, we get into anger in the brain, and there's a video here.
Anger, like fire, can be good at times, but it can also destroy the longer we hold on to it, ravaging relationships and lives. Why do we have it? And why is this grip so powerful? Hi, I'm Peter Montoya from Thrive Union, and I'll be sharing our current thinking on anger as part of our How the Brain Works series. Anger developed to help us react quickly to protect ourselves. It arises primarily from an ancient portion of our brain called the amygdala, which triggers automatic responses when we're threatened. commonly known as fight, flight, or freeze. When distinguishing a threat, the amygdala activates the hypothalamus, which tells our pituitary glands to release the hormones like the stress chemical cortisol, adrenaline, and norepinephrine. Before we're even aware, our body is flooded with hormones and neurotransmitters that shoot up our heart rate, energize our muscles, and increase blood pressure, all to get us ready to fight. Systems like digestion and vision are limited, along with our prefrontal cortex, which controls reasoning. Our hippocampus quiets, reducing short-term memory and new memory formation. All this makes us impulsive decision makers who may say harsh words we don't remember after the fact. These reactions helped our ancestors survive wild animal attacks, but the long-term effects ravage our modern bodies. Too much anger compromises our brains and creates high blood pressure, heart disease, and compromised immune systems. Worse, the amygdala has trouble distinguishing modern slights from imaginary threats. So how do we manage our anger? Brain scans of murderers show damaged or less active prefrontal cortexes, showing that one key way to combat anger is to strengthen that area. But can you grow gray matter? Yes. Research shows that meditation has been shown to both shrink the amygdala and grow the prefrontal cortex. Research also shows that venting or suppressing anger actually builds it. Instead, mindfully observe your feelings or try reframing them. Imagine learning that the driver who cut you off just lost their child. Your anger would likely immediately turn into compassion. Our imagination can trigger the amygdala or quiet it. Try creating stories that reframe an offender's actions when there is no real threat. And don't forget meditation. Meditation is by far and away the best practice for reducing all recurring negative emotions. Changing how we approach our anger literally changes our brains. It frees us from a tyranny of automatic responses and helps us enjoy greater health, longevity, and fulfillment so we can thrive.
Thrive Union is a real-world community and life school dedicated to human well-being. Our regular events include...
All right, so that is the video. Feel free to view that last bit of information on the agency here. I've just wanted to exit the video for now because just to be mindful of time. All right, so after you play the video, we have another journal moment. And you'll just hit those questions to review the questions, which are also included in the journals. All right, so we have, what are some of the situations, experiences that you face in your life that cause you to feel angry? What do you do when you feel angry? How do you feel after you have expressed your anger? All right, so after you've given your clients enough time to answer those questions in their journal, you'll get to the next page here, which is anger helpful or harmful? So here we're going to distinguish between what helpful anger entails and what harmful anger entails. Okay, so you're just going to click on each button here to reveal some more text. So first, helpful anger. Okay, so here we just state that anger can be helpful when feeling threatened or in danger. Feeling angry can be a warning bell indicating that you or someone else may be in danger, unjust, or unfair situation. Therefore, anger can be helpful when it protects you without causing harm to yourself or others. And then harmful. So anger can be harmful when it is intense, excessive, or constant, and or when it is expressed through acts of aggression toward yourself or others. It is not the feeling of anger that is harmful, but how often it is felt and expressed. All right, so after defining the difference between helpful and harmful anger, we get more into examples of helpful anger. Okay, so as you can see, anger can be helpful when you or others are in dangerous, unjust, or unfair situations, or in a situation that may not be aligned with your values. So you're just going to have your participants share some examples. So first, share an example of a time when you were in a dangerous situation and anger helped to keep you or others safe. And then in a situation that didn't align with your values and anger connected you to your values. So you're just going to fill in those spaces with your client's responses. Right, so here we get more into helpful anger. So when anger is value driven, it can inspire positive change. When feelings of anger are connected to values, anger may inspire positive change and address social issues and injustices like oppression, racism, colonization, and environment degradation. Okay, so here we have some examples of amazing people who have inspired positive social change through value-driven anger. So here we have Martin Luther King Jr., Mahatma Gandhi, Nellie Kareninu, and Robert Kenner. So you're just going to click on the card and read a little bit about each of these people who have encouraged so much positive change through their actions. Gandhi here. And on the above the card, it says their values. You can specify which values drove each of these examples or each of these people towards making social change in their environments. And the final example here. All right, so after you've gone through each card, again, I would invite your participants to read those cards, but feel free to take the lead if participation is low. Then you're going to progress to the next page, and we get into when is anger harmful. So these are great examples of how people have used their anger to fight for what they believe in. Did you know that even value-driven anger can be harmful to yourself and others when it is too intense, too frequent, or expressed through acts of aggression? All right, so here we're going to discuss the differences between feeling anger and acts of aggression. Just take a deeper look into that, and it starts off with another video here.
Anger is often misunderstood. People think of it as inherently bad, when in reality, anger serves an important role in our lives as it alerts us to the fact that we have been wronged, and it energizes us to confront injustice. So why do people think of anger as bad? Well, a lot of times it's because they confuse anger and aggression. What's the difference? Well, anger is an emotion. It's the feeling of frustration you have when you can't find your car keys, the exasperation you feel when you keep getting stuck at red lights, or the intense rage you feel when someone is genuinely cruel to you. Meanwhile, aggression is a behavior. Specifically, it's a behavior where the intent is to hurt someone or something. Hitting, kicking, or insulting are all forms of physical or verbal aggression. Why is this difference important? Well, because people can be angry without being aggressive. Yes, sometimes angry people say insulting things, and sometimes they're violent. On the other hand, sometimes angry people mope or pout. Sometimes they yell, scream, or swear, and sometimes they cry. Sometimes, though, angry people do positive things. Sometimes they problem solve. Sometimes they protest. Sometimes they politely assert themselves, or exercise, or paint, or meditate, or write letters to their representatives, or draw, or write poetry, or a host of other things that aren't harmful and are often helpful. You see, anger isn't inherently bad. It's what you do when you're angry that matters. Learn more about anger at my blog, All the Rage.
All right, so that's the video, and then you're going to click the View Differences button. So here you view the differences between anger and acts of aggression. So anger is a natural, healthy emotion that may or may not be expressed and does not always result in acts of aggression. Feeling angry too frequently can be harmful to yourself and others. Acts of aggression are controllable, unhealthy behaviors or actions caused by anger, which result in physical and emotional harm to yourself and others. All right, so here we have different examples of acts of aggression. So you're just gonna click on the next example button until all 12 examples have been displayed. So we have threatening gestures, shouting, swearing, punching or hitting people, destroying property, insults and name calling, verbal threats, emotional abuse, abusive phone calls, texts, emails, mimicking, sarcasm, and minimizing someone's emotions. All right, so here we just have an activity to kind of summarize the last few pages up. So you're just going to ask your participants to share a situation where they express their anger through acts of aggression and it resulted in harming themselves or others. And you're just going to fill in that box with their response. All right, we have another journal moment here. Which is acts of aggression. So you're just going to have participants answer, how do you feel after your anger has been expressed through acts of aggression? How do you think others feel when you respond to situations with acts of aggression? Is responding to feelings of anger through acts of aggression harmful or helpful to yourself and others? Right, and then just give them enough time to answer those questions. And we get to a scenarios activity here. So here we look at some scenarios that explore values, anger, and acts of aggression. So you're going to click on each box and then complete the discussion points after. So our first scenario is Lucas values honesty and peace. While waiting at the mall for his girlfriend, Lucas receives a text from her telling him she will be a few minutes late. While waiting, Lucas decides to walk around the mall. After a few minutes of wandering, he turns a corner to find his girlfriend kissing another guy on the cheek. Lucas walks up to the guy and pushes him. When his girlfriend tries to stop him, he pushes her down in rage. He instantly feels awful that he has pushed her. And then you'll hit the view discussion button underneath and facilitate a discussion. So you'll just ask your participants, how do you think Lucas was feeling when he saw his girlfriend kissing another guy on the cheek? Does Lucas have a reason to feel angry? Why or why not? Did Lucas respond with an act of aggression? Is this behavior aligned with his values? Do you think Lucas's behavior was helpful or harmful to his girlfriend? How about the situation? Right, and then the second scenario here. Jenna values health and fairness. Jenna has moved into a new foster home where she is sharing a room with Jackie. Jackie smokes in the room, which is really tough for Jenna. Jenna has just quit smoking. And seeing Jackie smoke makes her want to smoke. So Jenna asks for her foster mom, Carol, if she can move into the empty room across the hall. Carol responds sarcastically, saying, "Who do you think you are, Jenna, wanting your own room? Suck it up and deal with the smoking princess." Jenna clenches her fists and walks away after saying, "Wow, Carol, I really don't think you get how hard it was for me to quit smoking. It would be nice if you could support me through this like an adult." And then you have your discussion questions here. So how do you think Jenna felt when Carol ignored her request and answered sarcastically? Does Jenna have a reason to feel angry? Why or why not? Did Jenna respond with an act of aggression? Is Jenna's behavior aligned with her values? Do you think Jenna's behavior was helpful or harmful to Carol? How about the situation? All right, and the third scenario here. Michael values respect and safety. Michael and his buddies, Jackson and Chris, are chilling and beatboxing on the corner when two cops show up and ask them for ID. When Jackson refuses to give the cops ID, one of the cops makes a racist remark. Jackson starts to yell at the cop and calls them racist. In response, the cops get out of their car and throw Jackson to the ground. Michael shouts at the cops to leave Jackson alone. When the cops ignore him and handcuff Jackson, Michael steps in, accidentally knocking a cop to the ground. Okay, so then the discussion questions for that scenario are, how do you think Michael felt when he heard the racist remark and saw Jackson handcuffed? Does Michael have a reason to feel angry? Why or why not? Did Michael respond with an act of aggression? Is his behavior aligned with his values? Do you think Michael's behavior was helpful or harmful to the situation? All right, so when all of those have been read and discussed, you'll go to the next page. And you're just gonna have another bit of a discussion. In which scenario would you find it most difficult to manage your anger and not respond with acts of aggression? And feel free there, if your participants aren't answering the question, feel free to answer it yourself to get the conversation going. All right, so here we have a reflection on feeling anger and acts of aggression. So you're just gonna click the begin reflection button. And you'll answer these questions. Your participants will answer these questions. So in your own words, what is the difference between anger and acts of aggression? Think of a situation where you were angry but did not act aggressively. What happened? What stopped you from acting aggressively? All right, and then we have we're kind of repeating that first activity we did on values. So how do acts of aggression get in the way of living your values? So reflecting on the top 5 values that they previously chose in the first activity, how do your acts of aggression get in the way of living a life aligned with your values? So you'll just go through your top 5 values, which will all be displayed here. Obviously, health is only chosen because we only chose one there, but all 5 will be displayed. And then you're just going to fill in the spaces with their responses. Okay, and we have another journal moment. So how do acts of aggression get in the way? Okay, so when acts of aggression get in the way of your values, how do you feel? Do you feel good or bad about yourself? Okay, so your clients will just fill in their journals with those answers. And then we get into how managing your anger and reducing acts of aggression can move you towards your values. So now that you've reflected on how acts of aggression can move you away from living a life aligned with your values, let's explore how managing your anger and reducing acts of aggression can move you towards living a life that reflects your values. So again, you'll just go through the top 5 values that they previously chose and then fill in those spaces with their answer at how reducing their acts of aggression will move them towards that value listed. All right, so as you can see, managing your anger and acts of aggression may help you align your behavior and actions to your values. Another quote here. And then we have a review game. So you're just going to spin the wheel and answer the question above. So list 3 physical signs of anger. Spin the wheel. Give 3 examples of aggression. Think of an example of when anger is helpful. Share one of your values and one way you can live a life more aligned with your values. Where do values come from? What is the difference between anger and aggression? So you'll just spin so that each part of the wheel is grayed out, which means all the questions have been answered, and you'll just have your clients take turns answering the question, or if you're working one-on-one, just go through those review questions with your client. All right, and we finished the module with a sharing circle. So you're just going to explain to your group that a sharing circle is where participants sit in a circle and take turns speaking. So any object can be used as a talking piece to communicate to everyone in the circle whose turn it is to speak. When a participant is holding a talking piece, it is their turn to speak. And when they're done speaking, they'll pass the talking piece clockwise to the next person until everyone has answered the question. So everyone's just going to answer, share one key learning you got from today's session. And these instructions are all included in the module guide as well. And again, if you're not getting too much participation, feel free to answer the question yourself to start off the conversation. All right, so that is our new anger management module. So I'm just going to pause now to see if you have any questions. All right, it doesn't seem like we have any questions coming through, but please feel free to ask any if you have them, if you think of any before or while we're finishing up here. Here we just have a list of our hub partners. And then I would like to share my contact information with you all. With all new modules, we really appreciate any feedback. So please feel free to contact us if you have any questions or feedback about the module. Additionally, if you have any questions about training opportunities, you can reach me at hubinfo@springboardservices.ca or at 647-394-1589. We're a platform of over 1,400 facilitators, so we're really trying to harness the wisdom of caring professionals on the ground. We really value your insight and feedback so we can improve programming. So please let us know if you have any feedback or any questions. All right, thank you so much for participating in today's webinar, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you.